What's going on, team? MykePerry here. We're going to be going over some Raider content, actually just a small tip of Raider stuff, mainly about what's taking place with Antonio Brown. The man just want to have a comfortable helmet when he's out there playing football, trying to basically compete at the top level. And just like how they want all the best equipment for their employees while they're playing this, extremely violent game, it does make sense for someone to want to be comfortable wearing the equipment, right? So even though he might be appealing, and if it is or is not, I mean, hopefully it's not denied, but at the very least, try to understand where he's coming from on the side, or this is where I think he's coming from, is that he wants to have a comfortable helmet when he's playing football. And that's basically it. And the thing that I find somewhat funny is that a couple of days ago, when I was listening to Golick and Wingo, that one of their hosts was talking about Antonio Brown might be able to get his helmet to be able to be used this year. And Mike Golick was hardcore. No, he's going to have to, conform to what they want to do, basically somewhat on that lines. But when the individual that came in on the show mentioned something about this is the same type of helmet that Tom Brady liked, and if this will work, I'm sure Tom Brady's going to want to do it too. All of a sudden it was all positive. Oh yeah, if that helmet gets in there, Tom Brady's going to definitely want on it. And it was like, that's basically what he's trying to do, and that's going to go all around for all the people in the organizations, or all the organizations, all the teams, that players that are not comfortable in the helmets that they're going to have themselves get more comfortable helmets that they can play in and feel more comfortable and put out a better product. I mean, if people are complaining about preseason and how they feel like that's trash, don't you think, the regular season is going to be somewhat trash if you got players that are feeling uncomfortable in their equipment and then they're fumbling the balls or not making catches, things of that nature? It all has a domino effect, believe me. So hopefully it'll get into effect and they'll start working with all players, to be honest, so that way they are putting out the better product and letting these guys be comfortable in this violent sport, that they're wearing something that they can feel, genuinely okay with as they're about to get hit. So funny. Anyway, my next subject will be on Carmelo Anthony. Again, this is like a little bit on the late side about how Carmelo Anthony was denied being on the USA team, which I feel is the most ridiculous thing ever. I mean, back in 1992, when they got the Dream Team together, getting all these NBA players to come and play, that was the start of it. And Carmelo Anthony has 3 gold medals for the U.S. team, as well as the bronze with LeBron. No offense. But again, you're looking at someone that's been there, has competed, has won gold medals. He's not on the team right now. There shouldn't be anything keeping you from having him come in, at least participate. If worst case scenario, if you feel like he's not giving you what you're looking for on your team, it's not like you have to keep him. You don't sign him to a contract that he has to stay. You let him go. But at the end of the day, you're still getting a superstar type player on your roster, a veteran, someone who can help. You have a leader on the court, leader on the bench, leader in the locker room, leader in practice, someone that's going to give you that extra edge when you're competing. And if you've got a lot of guys that haven't been there before or just learning the rules or what have you, you got that veteran there to help you. So that would have been the best decision other than denying him. So that makes no sense, as well as the idea that he hasn't been picked up on a team yet. But to some degree, I can understand you want to see what you got first before you start pulling in a player like Carmelo Anthony, just to make sure you're not pulling in something or someone that's not going to fit, being that you have someone that can be in that role. So I can understand that to some degree, but I would say soon someone should be basically looking towards getting Carmelo on their roster ASAP. Which also brings me up to Kapernick. Why isn't he signed? You got all these different players injured. You got all these different players that are not performing well, and yet no one's trying to get Kapernick into camp yet. Just doesn't make sense. I mean, even if you bring him in just to make, the guys that you want to be better start thinking, hey, you know what, I got to start, pulling my own weight around here or start making some improvements. Otherwise, Kaepernick's going to take my job. I mean, call it what you want if you're going to use it in that sense, but at the very least, pull him in, see what he can do, see if it's worth it. But to let him sit out here for as long as they have, and with the stuff that we've seen last year, with different quarterbacks coming in and just, oh my goodness. And as far as people having this, like heard this so many different times, and it's annoying. Coach is talking about he doesn't fit our scheme. Well, let me make sure I understand this correctly. Does your scheme involve a quarterback? He's a quarterback. End of story. There is no scheme. Put him on your roster. Let him play. Even if it's a backup role. We've seen this as well throughout the whole course of, well, I shouldn't say the whole course of history of football, but we've seen this many times where someone comes in to back up the starting quarterback and that team goes forward. We've seen Steve Young back up Montana and they win the Super Bowl. We see Hostetler back up Sims to win a Super Bowl. We've seen, obviously, most recently, Nick Foles back up Carson Wentz. So you need it. Like I know, like one of the older sayings I used to hear is that if you got two quarterbacks, you don't have one. That's not necessarily true. You could have two good quarterbacks. It's just a matter of who's going to get paid the most money at the beginning. But to be honest, your starter, especially if you pick them or you hire them in a sense of from draft or what have you, and they're a good player, you're going to start them. But just like how I want to say it's Matt Flynn, when he lost his job to Russell Wilson performed. Now, could he have stayed on the team? Yes. But would it make sense? No. Especially for the team's point, because they already had this quarterback that they were going to be paying a low amount of money to. And unfortunately, they did get him over to the Raiders. But that's a different story altogether. Back to what I was saying before about having at least a decent backup quarterback. If you don't have a legitimate starting quarterback, bring Kaepernick in, see what's going on with that. I'm going to have more content come up on here, so hopefully you guys will enjoy what you've seen now, and I'll start putting up some other things. I'm going to have different categories. I'm going to be working on some skits, some gaming footage, some funny little antics I'm going to do, but stay tuned. I'm going to try to keep it fun and keep it going as long as I can. One thing I wanted to do also, and I'm sorry I'm bringing this up late, talk show host, radio show host. I'm going to specifically talk about Will Cain, mainly because I shouldn't say, some of the things he's talked about I don't like. But the one topic that he brought up one time was about a quarterback that played 4 games for a team and they won their title in college. I apologize for not remembering the teams and things of that nature. It was just, at the time, I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I agree with what Will Cain is saying, that this kid doesn't deserve to get a ring or whatever it is that they're supposed to get. And I called up the line, and instead of them taking the call, they took the call, but because I was agreeing with him, they didn't want to put me on air. They wanted more people to be on the opposite side, which is like, okay, then why don't you screen your calls better? Don't have someone sit on the line and wait to get on the show just so you can tell them that they're not going to take your call because you agree with the host. That doesn't make sense. And one of the things that also bothered me was that you still should get those people on there so they can prove your point, add in some context. So that way, as they're giving you information, that you can either agree or disagree with what they're saying as well, but at least you're getting another side of someone that's agreeing with you. And again, this was at a time when I normally don't agree with Will, and I was just like, you know what, I'm done trying to call in to these shows, especially after that. But we're trying to keep it positive. Still listen to him. I'm not trying to not listen to having people not listen to him. I'm just saying, you know, if you are on the side of calling in and you might agree with what he's saying and you want to add to it, don't be surprised if they don't get you on. That's all. But if anything, this is going to be me signing off. Thanks for listening. And again, I'm going to I'm going to try to get more content out and try to do it as much as I can and try to keep things funny and positive and just build this channel up. So again, thank you for listening.